Welcome to another episode of Discover History Like Never Before. Today, we are pleased to introduce India City Walks Walk Icons initiative, where academia meets tourism. This program offers the finest thematic walks celebrating the rich tapestry of Indian heritage and culture. Led by historians, researchers, and master storytellers, each experience delves deep into India's past through curated tours, interactive bataks, and insightful workshops. Today, we are honored to be joined by one of our esteemed walk icons, Dr. Nilima Chitgopekar, an associate professor of history at Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. With over 40 years of dedication to teaching and research, Dr. Chitgopekar is distinguished scholar in Hindu mythology, particularly in understanding the concepts of Shiva and Shakti. Her work has earned her prestigious fellowships, including the Charles Wallace India Research Award and visiting fellowships at the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. Before we dive into our main discussion, I want to highlight that Dr. Chitgopekar is also a gifted poet. We are excited to have her share one of her favorite poems with us today. Our conversation will be in two parts. First, a brief discussion followed by a Guftugu session where we will focus specifically on the themes of Shiva and Shakti. So let's get started. We are pleased to have you, ma'am, and rather being honored here to be with you. Just to put our questions across, with Shiva and Shakti, there are two synonymous angles to divinity, to masculineness, to feminism. Yeah. From your book and from your inspiration and the personal connections, we would like to understand more about your work on Shiva and Shakti. If you can just give us some insight.
Definitely. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And I'm also very honored to be here and talk about some of the work that I have done. And so you're asking me about Shiva and Shakti. Of course, I think we all have to be very proud as people who are following this religion, Hinduism, that not only do we have a very strong masculine god, that is Shiva, but there is also the strong feminine in the form of Shakti. And Shakti is a completely unique concept which you won't find anywhere in the world. And it is actually something like an energy, a strong tejas that the female personifies, and she has in her as the creator. She creates the universe through that Shakti.
What drew you to explore your work of Shiva and Shakti? Well, what was that one inspiration or aspiration, I would say?
Well, then I'll just have to dig a little bit into my autobiography in a way. I did a PhD on Shiva many years ago, decades ago. And when you work on Shiva, which is the main area which I worked on, Shakti came later, you're not far away from Shakti, because he is a god who is a male god among all the other male gods, Vishnu, Krishna, everyone. He's so amenable to the female consciousness. When you hear the stories about Shiva, you'll see he's such a wonderful man because he's so close even to the feminine side of himself.
Wow. So
Shiva is someone I was drawn to. I started writing about Shiva. I did a PhD on Shiva. My earlier books were on Shiva as well. And slowly I got interested in gender politics. What were the politics between Shiva and Shakti? That is his wife. What were the politics? What was the dynamism between them as a married couple? I got very interested in that, not only through sculptural images, but also in literature.
Very nice.
That's how I got interested in it.
And many women in India are named Devi.
Yes.
Is there any connotation or is there any thought line when you were doing your PhD or your research? Is there anything about the tradition or that cultural identity which you can link up when they keep the names? By keeping the name of the god.
Yeah. So this is very amusing story. I mean, not story, it's a fact. I have heard this from many people whom I have interviewed, that agar we give the name, can I speak in Hindi?
Yes.
Agar hum naam dete hain bachcho ko of a god or a goddess, to automatically God yaad aa jate hain, because you'll call out to your son, hey Shiva, come here. Hey Shankar, come here. Or Devi, if she's called Sushila Devi. Sushila Devi. I mean, Devi is now and then a first name, but usually it comes as a second name. Like Sushila Devi, Meera Devi. It comes like Kumar comes. But it's a way of invoking the goddess in your everyday life.
Okay.
If you give a name like Sita, or you give a name like Durga, you give a name like Devi, then the parents are automatically feeling that we are calling out to the god by naming. And then there is a hope that this child will imbibe the characteristics of that particular divinity.
Yeah.
So it could be Sita, it could be Durga. Normally they like Sita.
Yeah.
They like Sita, they like Lakshmi.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you hear them calling their daughter Kali because she's a ferocious goddess. Or even Durga is not so common because Durga is very ferocious. Yeah.
And how has the Shakti tradition and Shaivism evolved from early text to the present in terms of historical context and evolution? What is that contextual?
I would like to make this one historical fact very clear.
Sure.
When we look at the earliest texts, we don't find Shakti.
Yeah.
It's only patriarchy, men, male gods.
Yes.
Male gods are powerful. But I feel that once people came, the earliest inhabitants of India, they moved into the other regions like of Orissa, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, they encountered goddesses.
Okay.
Because in the Rig Veda, the earliest text, we don't encounter goddesses as such.
Okay.
We encounter them, but they're not powerful. They're not really representing Shakti. Shakti is power
Shakti
and
is
energy.
power, yeah.
And so I think then there was a melding of two different ideas. Shiva and Shakti from the indigenous population. That's how we look at it as historians.
And what will be Shiva's and Shakti interdependence? Because I would when I was reading your books,
Yes.
Everything is going together.
Yes.
And there's a balance
Yes.
that needs to be seen,
Yes.
imbibed, or feel.
Yes.
But what is the interdependence?
The interdependence is at many levels.
Okay.
But one level is, of course, that he's the creator. But this beautiful concept has been brought in that he is the creator, but he's quiescent. He's like a Shav. Shiva is like Shav. Until Shakti comes to him. Only Shakti can electrify him and make him become alive. So there are two aspects in life. The male and the female.
Yeah.
The primordial male is Shiva, the primordial female is the goddess.
Yeah.
And even in everyday life, we know that reproduction takes place when the two get together, the two sexes get together. So this is something that was in the minds of the people, that every male god has to have a consort.
Okay.
Otherwise, how will you look at the male god as a creator? He can't create by himself, though there are many myths in which he does.
Yes.
But basically the idea among all human beings, they feel comfortable to know that their male god, whether it is Vishnu with Lakshmi, Krishna should be with Rukmani, but he's seen with Radha, never mind, that has another story. Shiva with Parvati. So you find all of them have their females, the males have the females and the females have the males. At one time they may have been independent.
Okay.
Then they get married, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the present day. Nowadays we believe in manifestations.
Yeah.
So how do you feel manifestations of Shakti? And what are the significant manifestations and what they represent in today's scenario?
Are you saying what does Shakti give to the people today when they manifest?
When they manifest Shakti, what people get?
Yes. I don't think there's anywhere a more powerful manifestation than Shakti. Like if you even look at her in sculpture,
Yeah.
or even when you look at her when she comes every autumn season, we have the Durga Puja. Even though she's completely covered there, she's completely defanged.
Yeah.
You don't see the ferocious side of her. Even then, she provides so much of energy to the people when they go and see her at the pandal when they go.
Yeah.
So I think Durga's manifestation, the fact that she can go single-handedly and destroy Mahishasur, who is the demon who has destroyed all the male gods.
Yeah.
Mostly all the male gods, like Indra and all the devas.
Yes.
Only when she intervenes, only when she goes to the battle, can he be destroyed. And not only him, many others. Madhuk Hetab hai, Shumba Nishumba hai.
Yeah.
There are many pairs of demons who are destroyed by the goddess. So I think she's a wonderful manifestation in times of trouble and crisis. And even if you're just giving an exam, she gives you the strength and like they say, hey Bhagwan, mujhe Shakti do. You hear that very often. I used to hear my mother say that. If there was a crisis, she would say, mujhe Shakti dena. It was like some kind of some kind of thing floating around which you can ask for.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily the goddess only. It was some kind of thing that you could ask the gods and goddesses for. Shakti though.
Yeah.
Humko man ki Shakti. There are that very famous song from the film Guddhi.
Yeah.
So like that man ki Shakti hoti hai, sharir ka Shakti hota hai, dil ka Shakti hota hai. So it's also a goddess, but it's also a very strong concept.
Oh, very nice. I mean, it's so nice to hear. Now, from manifestations to the global audiences.
Yeah.
I mean, you have been giving lot many lecture series. You have been taking lot many sessions.
Yes.
And so many. I mean, your recent books have been in limelight.
Yes.
And looking at the elections coming in US, so there are a lot many things going in terms of global influence of Shakti.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what will be that global influence of Shakti that is being most acknowledged or most asked from you when people read your books?
So I project my Shakti as being in a familial atmosphere. She has a family. She has a husband. She has 2 children. She is working and functioning within that. She is showing her power. It's not like she's some lady on her own doing something. No, she is in a structured sense. The culture is giving her the family life. And in that she shows her Shakti and her strength. That's how I look at Shakti. And in the global sense, I think all over the world for the last 30 years or maybe more than that, people are fascinated that we are such a goddess worshipping culture, nation even today. Because in most countries it started off like that. I'm talking about thousands of years ago. There was, even in paganism, there was mother goddess worship. It all disappeared, with the coming of Christianity, with the coming of the Semitic religions. It disappeared. It's mainly male gods. But in our country, what is fabulous is there is the male god worship also, and there's the female also. Both are simultaneously going on. Throughout the year, each one has its own period. Like this certain time of the year will be for Saraswati, certain time of the year will be for Lakshmi, certain time will be for Shiva, Ganesha. Everyone had their own period where they are the omnipotent god or goddess.
And are there any misconceptions that concern you? Somewhere, I mean, where people...
I'll tell you my biggest misconception, which I think I have mentioned so many times that people must be tired of hearing me say this. Hinduism should not be straitjacketed. Hinduism is amorphous, it's huge, it's spread out like you cannot even imagine. A few steps you go, there'll be another story of the Ramayana, there'll be another story of Shiva. We have to incorporate these manifold manifestations of our divinities. We can't say Shiv ko sirf aisa represent karna hai, Ram ji aisa karna hai. No, there are many Rams in the minds of the people, in the folklore, in the songs that the villagers sing, in so many stories and legends that are told. Hinduism is a very pluralistic religion. And we want to the misconception is that you can straitjacket it and say, this is the only way Shiva needs to be represented. No. There is also Bhairav, there is also Shankar, there is also Adi Yoga, there's also Nataraj. There are so many ways. Bhairav made the prasad, the bhog is sharab. There are many ways of worshipping, many types of rituals, and I love the manifoldness of, or let's say, I love the plurality and the many-natured aspect of Hinduism. And that's the misconception that we can try and make it one book. Gita is not the only important book. There are many. Bhagavad Gita is not the only important. Many people don't even know what Bhagavad Gita is about. They might be reading the Ramcharitmanas. They might be reading Shiv Puran. They might be reading some other book which is not important to them. We don't have that one book like the Semitic religions have. We have thousands of books which are considered.
And it's all diversity.
The diversity is what we have to maintain. The moment we try stopping people like muzzling people, no, don't say that. That doesn't sound good. My Durga, when I read Devi Mahatmya, my Durga is a fierce goddess who loves drinking wine, partaking of wine. She's going into the battle like today the soldiers are given rum free of, at very discounted prices. She also goes into the army. She also goes in with her army completely drinking and quaffing and enjoying the wine. But many times people will say, oh, how can you say that about a goddess? So the idea is not to try and whitewash what was there in the past, what is there in our mythology, what is there in our scriptures. The idea is to let the pluralism survive. That's the beauty of Hinduism.
And this is so interesting, from my personal angle, Shiva balances many roles. What is that modern readers like us or listeners like us can imbibe from Shiva as per you?
Yeah. So I just think that the beauty of Shiva having all these different rupas is that I can identify with a particular aspect. If I'm a dancer, if I'm a performer, I might like his Nataraj image. He, the wonderful Tandav dancer, the wonderful Lasya dancer, might identify with that. If I'm meditative by nature, I might love the fact that he can sit down and meditate for hours and days and months and change his transform himself. Inner transformation takes place when he does that. So I might like his Adi Yogi form. I might like his Shankara form, where he's a very peaceful, happily married man. So I might like his Rudra form, in which he's an angry man, the angry young man. So each person in India, within Hinduism, I should not say India, within Hinduism, has the freedom and autonomy to choose their own desired god. That is called Ishtadeva.
And what is your personal experience with the deities? I mean, I think we're talking India, we're talking Hinduism. What is that related to your research on Shiva and Shakti? Can you share any personal experience?
So there may be coincidences, you could call them coincidences, but I have had wonderful experiences with Shiva. And I mean, just to give you one example, I was traveling to Switzerland to meet my son. He was an intern at the United Nations. So we traveled in Bern. He was living in Bern. Bern is such a tiny, small little township with not much international crowd, I could say. And I'm talking about 20 years ago. And I was writing this book called Rudra, the Idea of Shiva. And I took a small break. And I went to Bern with my husband to visit our son. And we were walking on the road, and it's a Sunday, so all the shops have the shutters down. And we were walking on this side, on the right side of the road, and suddenly I don't know what came into me. I crossed the road. And my family was saying, why are you crossing the road? I didn't talk to them. There was a shutter which was half down. I wanted to go there somehow. I go there and I bend down, and you won't believe it, there was this big murti of Shiva staring me straight in the eyes. And it was not an Indian store. It was a Swiss store, full of Swiss lace, dressed in China. Matlab jitna unka bric-a-brac hota hai,
must be,
ceramics, this, that. And in the middle of all that, one Indian item, that is Shiva staring at me. So I looked at him and I said, don't worry, I'll finish the book, because I was supposed to So I started talking, don't worry, I'm going back to India. I will finish the book fast. And my husband said, who is she talking to? And thank God they came and took a photograph, because the next day when my son went there, the image was not there. It had gone. Maybe someone picked it up. But it was such a strange thing. Wherever I go, whichever part of the world I travel to, the same thing happened also in Antwerp. I will somehow or the other see Shiva. I have hundreds of things to say. So it's just amazing. It could be a coincidence. But my family has now started believing in this, because I've had a lot of these unusual encounters.
And now we are talking about travel, which is very interesting. When we talk and understand from you that how can people and where all they can deepen their knowledge when they travel to India from Shiva and Shakti scenario. What are those places that you can tell us where people can, after reading your book, can travel, or before reading your book can travel, so that it gives them that insight of that ground up research that you have done for so many years, spent 40 years in this, so that they can understand.
Yes, of course, Sachin, traveling is always age related. So those in their 60s will do a certain type, those in the 40s will do a certain type. And also people's own picadillos, what do they like? Some people some people don't even like to go into temples. But I would think that all of Madhya Pradesh has got the most beautiful Shiva temples. And I think places like Amarkantak, places which are not so famous like Khajuraho. Amarkantak Jao, you go to these kind of smaller places where you have beautiful images, beautiful temples of Shiva. And of course Khajuraho, which is the most famous place where you have a lot of very famous temples. And I would think that in my opinion, it would be nice to do the north, and it would be wonderful to see how Shiva is depicted differently in the south. Shiva and the goddess.
And what will be your two top places in India, if you have to choose?
I really like Mahabalipuram very much, because there's my favorite myth is there. Mahishasur is attacking the goddess, and she's sitting astride, and Mahishasura's expression is of a hurt lover. I mean, how did the artists do that? I love Mahabalipuram. So it's out in the open, there are caves. Then I also love Udayagiri near Bhopal.
Udayagiri, yes.
So I love that because the earliest images of Varaha Avatar is there, Durga is there.
Yeah.
So you can see the beginning of these sculptures. And of course, Sanchi is close by, so you can go to Sanchi. But I think I would really highly recommend, because these are places which are not difficult. Like when you think in terms of Kedarnath and all, you have to be of a certain age, you have to have a certain fitness level to be able to do all that. But these are places which are easy to go to, and I would recommend that. I would recommend Dehradun, where I have my favorite Shiva temple called Tapkeshwar.
Wow.
I would say, I've talked about Tapkeshwar at length, because I feel when I went to Tapkeshwar when I was about 10 years old, something happened to me.
Yeah.
I just stumbled into the temple by myself, and I just was fascinated by Shiva. I mean, I've dedicated my entire life to writing, talking, reading about Shiva. Something must have happened to me sometime, because I didn't grow up in India. Till about 9 years old, I was in America with no exposure to India or to Indian customs or to Hinduism, nothing at all. Yeah.
And being from academics, and today we see many new authors, people who are doing research. They're writing because of digital evolution. Writing is easy, and showcasing it easy. As per you, I mean, who deserves the title of a historian? I mean,
oh my God.
so this question is an important one for us.
Sachin, it is.
Because the narrative, the thought line, primary research, resources, there's so much that encompass a historian's life.
Yes.
So who deserves that title?
So I don't want to be condescending towards a person who may want to write about their experiences of going to different temples. They would be like writing in an explorative way. They are explorers. They have seen those places, and they might find out the local legend and local myth and do it. But if you want to call yourself a historian, then just like you mentioned right now, the sources are of extreme prime importance. So we look at original sources. If I'm saying I looked at Devi Mahatmaya, I looked at Devi Mahatmaya, of course in the English translation, but also I try, my Sanskrit is not so good, but even try to look at that and look at the Purans and look at the Vedas and get all I can get from there. Or the inscriptions or the sculptures. It's not just that, it's manifold the way you're going to, a historian approaches a particular topic. So you're looking at the literary sources, you're looking at epigraphic sources, you're looking at sculptural antiquities, you're then trying to, nowadays I even try to take interviews of people.
Wow.
So I feel that a historian has a very big task, and it is something you can't overnight become a historian. You have to be trained in history, just like you're trained in other disciplines, and you have to know how to handle the sources. There is a particular method, there is a methodology. And so I don't feel good if everybody says they're a historian. I'm very happy when somebody says that I'm a writer, I'm an explorer, I like to write about my travels. That is very different from being a historian.
No, very kind of you to put this across in a very nice way.
Thank you.
Though this episode is just a thought line of what we're going to be interacting with you in Guftugu, which is a storytelling session.
Yes.
But it will be great for viewers to listen to any one of your poems.
Oh, oh my God. Now, this I got to know only this morning, just now.
A very short one. I mean, in person, definitely we can, when we have more audiences, then we can do it.
But so it's kind of like a romantic poem. Or it's should I do the sad one? I don't know whether I should do a sad one. Should I do a romantic one? Should I do the
What's your mood right now?
Varanasi one?
What's your mood right now? You do that.
There's one on Varanasi. Does that do well? No, that doesn't do well. My mood
right now
is romantic.
Yes.
I'm a hardcore romantic even at this age. So there's a poem the poem is called An Outstation Wedding.
Okay.
So it goes like this: An outstation wedding. I saw you again after 8 long years. I saw you again after 8 long years. Now and then I'd recapture your smile. Kindling memories of a library small with books marked well, but hardly read at all. What were your thoughts at that well-attended wedding? Were you amazed to find me unchanged? Or were you relieved to have escaped with compatible ease and consummate grace from a gnawing relationship spread over months, and maybe a marriage that could not have stayed young?
Wow. Wow. This is very exciting and interesting. And I'm sure that our viewers and listeners are in awe right now and look forward to that Guftugu and the storytelling session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sachin. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here and talk to you about on Shiva and Shakti.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.